New details on Mandy Rose's WWE firing. Apparently, the former NXT Women's Champion was blindsided after it was revealed that she was going to be released by WWE just 24 hours after she dropped the NXT Women's Championship. Got an update on Vince McMahon wanting a return to WWE. However, strong allies even agree it wouldn't be beneficial for the former WWE Chairman to return to the company. Rob Fee indicates that tonight is a must-see edition of SmackDown. What could happen on tonight's episode live on Fox? Shotsy is injured, or is she? Is the injury legitimate or not? Charlotte Flair continues to tease a return to WWE's in-ring action, plus an update on the SmackDown holiday tapings. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. One of the biggest stories this week, of course, has been Mandy Rose's departure from WWE. And we've got more details on the departure of the former NXT Women's Champion, the controversial circumstances surrounding her release, and now, certainly, it's some really interesting stuff. Now, first few details come from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. Now, he was the first person to actually break this story on Wednesday, as mentioned, just less actually than 24 hours after Mandy Rose had dropped the NXT Women's Championship to Roxanne Perez on NXT on the USA Network. And in the day, or in the last 2 days since Mandy Rose was released by WWE, Fightful Select are reporting more about the situation that led up to her being released. Now, Sean Ross Sapp is reporting that he was told that things seemed very hasty as it relates to Mandy Rose losing the NXT Women's Championship on Tuesday. Fightful reportedly got word about it about 15 minutes before NXT actually went on the air. Of course, it was widely reported at the time that something was going to happen regarding the NXT Women's Championship on that show. Of course, it indeed did happen. Now, as I mentioned, they got word about 15 minutes before the show went on the air, and that word was that a major title switch was going to happen, with Mandy Rose dropping the championship on the show on the USA Network. Now, those close to Mandy Rose claim that she was in good spirits at the NXT show on Tuesday night, as well as immediately following the release. Obviously, as I speculated about previously, from a financial standpoint, she's going to be just fine. She did increase the price of her exclusive content page, as she should, by the way, and I'm sure that there have been several new signups with all of the controversy surrounding it, so I'm sure financially she'll be just fine. Now, what happens when it comes to Toxic Attraction? Well, JC Jane and Gigi Dolan, who Mandy Rose had been in a stable with for well over a year, had several looks on the WWE main roster, and Fightful are reporting that they had long impressed people of influence. However, they had not learned of any advanced plans to bring Mandy back to the main roster at any point. Mandy Rose was one of many WWE stars that were signed to new 5-year deals back in 2019, which would mean she had nearly 2 years left on her contract at the time of release. There were some WWE sources, and this is when it gets really strange, there were some WWE sources that were trying, or at least trying to, leak that Mandy Rose had requested her release 2 weeks ago, but so far, they've not been given any indication that that is true, which again is odd to me, that some WWE sources would be trying to justify this move. If I'm reading this correctly, some WWE sources are saying to certain outlets or certain reporters that she wanted to leave 2 weeks ago, which is not the case. So I don't know if that's WWE trying to save face or WWE just trying to muddy the waters by putting misinformation out there. It certainly is very, very strange. Now, WWE, though, in the last couple of days have officially confirmed that the former NXT Women's Champion Mandy Rose has indeed departed the company. As I mentioned, according to Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio, the title change happening this week was a rush decision made by NXT booker Shawn Michaels as soon as he found out earlier on that day about the type of content that Mandy had been posting on her exclusive content page. We spoke yesterday how the company believed that she was she had way crossed the line. And of course, it was previously reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select that Rose had indicated to people in recent months that she did realize what she was posting could get her in trouble with WWE management. As I mentioned, the report did indicate, though, that she had been in good spirits despite the release. As I mentioned, WWE has since now confirmed Mandy's departure from the company, with her officially being removed from the WWE roster page and being moved to the alumni section of the website. The graphics also were advertising NXT on WWE's official website that featured Rose have also seen her replaced by the new NXT Women's Champion, that being Roxanne Perez. Now, Dave Meltzer today in the Wrestling Observer newsletter has also given some new information about this and some new details surrounding maybe how Mandy Rose felt on the day of, despite being in high spirits. Did she see this coming, or did she think something else was going to happen? In the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer noted that Rose was fired the morning after dropping the NXT Women's Championship. So again, I'm not sure if she knew the day of she was going to be fired. She might have just been told, you're dropping the championship tonight. Indicating that the release came as a shock to Rose, Meltzer wrote, quote, "She was fired the next morning. Supposedly, she was blindsided about it." Now, as I mentioned, that kind of is in contrast to other reports by the likes of Sean Ross Sapp saying that she knew this could get her into trouble with management, and saying that she was in good spirits at Tuesday's show, as well as immediately after her release. So certainly that feels quite odd. And again, I said this before, that this one's going to, I think, continue to rumble on and on and on. I wouldn't even rule out at one point her returning to the company. I don't suspect that she stops doing the content anytime soon, which clearly is a point of contention with WWE. The initial reports when it came out suggested that they had a conversation and Mandy Rose had indicated that she wasn't willing to stop. However, Meltzer's new report suggests that she was quite blindsided by it, to the extent of when she dropped the championship on Tuesday, she still didn't even know she was going to be fired the next day, or she didn't know why she was dropping the title. Logically, again, I'm not sure that makes total sense, because in her case, you've held the championship for 413 days, and then you're told you're dropping the championship tonight to Roxanne Perez, even though initial plans were for her to challenge for the championship next year. Surely, Mandy Rose, someone who's held the title for that long period of time, would say, why am I dropping it tonight? Is everything okay? And if the answer was yes, she was lied to. If the answer was no, your follow-up question naturally would be, well, what's wrong then? What have I done? Well, what heat have I got? What's going on? And surely then the conversation would have been held about the kind of content she was posting, or there surely would have been discussions of, you've got to stop doing this or you're going to be fired. I find it strange it would just be, we've seen you're doing this, you're fired. I feel like they've invested so much time and they could still have made more money with Mandy Rose that they wouldn't have done that. So I don't know when it comes to Meltzer's report saying that she was blindsided by it. I struggle to believe that part of it. In my opinion, like I said, I think she's probably well aware. It would appear that she was well aware of the issues that it could cause. My feeling is it was a case of stop doing it. I mean, they would have probably... should have probably dropped the championship anyway, because she would have been punished, right? She would have been suspended or something of that nature. But my feeling is WWE would have given her an ultimatum. I don't know this to be a fact, but my feeling is that WWE would have given her an ultimatum and said, you've got to stop. If you don't stop, then we're going to have to let you go. And her response would be, I'm making more money doing this than I am working for you. So if you're telling me I have to choose between the two, I'm going to have to go where the money is, and the money is doing this kind of content. That's my feeling about it. I don't know if that's completely accurate. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, it's difficult to segue from Mandy Rose into this guy. We've got to do it though. Vince McMahon. Now, Vince McMahon this week had made headlines with more accusations being made against him, but also reports suggesting that he may want to return to the company that he was the former CEO and chairman of. Of course, he retired earlier this year. Per a new report, though, from the Wall Street Journal, Vince has indicated that he intends to make a comeback at WWE. The former WWE chairman and CEO announced his retirement on July 22nd amid an investigation into hush-packed allegations. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer reported that there are strong allies of Vince McMahon who don't want him to make a comeback. Discussing the likelihood of Vince returning to the company, Meltzer said, quote, I think the fact he wants to return and the fact that this stuff then comes up at the same time where people go, hey, there's no way there's more allegations all in the same story. I don't know that that's a coincidence. It's really interesting, and the big unanswered question is who or whom are the people who are in touch with the Wall Street Journal. We know they're probably from the board of directors, but who is it that did this? I've had people in wrestling, almost everyone in wrestling that I talk to, it's like, who exactly is the person? And usually the speculation revolves around three people. And I don't know that it's one of these three, but it's really an interesting question. Vince wants back. Vince is the majority shareholder. He owns the most voting power. He does not own 50% of the stock, but he does own probably close to 80% of the voting power. If it was a private company, he could be in tomorrow. But because it's a public company, the board of directors have to make decisions. And the board of directors, their job is to look out for the company. And they may very well believe, and probably do, that Vince coming back would not be the best thing. Because he left because of these allegations that are public. If he came back, there would definitely be issues with some sponsors. There'd be queasiness. Even perhaps Fox or USA. And USA too. You're definitely risking that because with these different allegations out and the payoffs and stuff like that, it'd be a big risk. Another key thing with that story is that because he wants to come back, that company's not being sold. It can't be sold because then he'll have no voting power. If it's sold, he's never coming back. And obviously, as long as he wants to come back, he will not sell this company. And he does have, because of owning over 50% of the voting shares, he can block any sale that Nick Khan or anyone else, Stephanie, wants to do with everyone. So that's one of the big stories in this, is that whatever talks of sale there is, it can't happen until Vince gives up the ghost and says, I'm not coming back. As long as Vince has this attitude, they're not going to be able to sell. There's lots of other ramifications to this too. The moral of the situation now, everyone's kind of uncertain again of what's going on. There's really a lot of uncertainty in the company. It would be major internal upheaval in that company for him to come back. But he's Vince, and maybe he will. He will certainly try. In itself, just the fact he's trying, it's going to be a big story. I know the allies of Vince, very much allies of Vince, and very protective of Vince and things like that, who are not business allies of Vince within that company right now, because they know it would be the worst thing. And they are very strong allies of Vince. People who you would think are his allies, you don't know. People are happier in the company. They know the company's running better. And so the people who are allies or looking at the best interests of the company, they don't want him back. When Vince was on the rocks, they were allies of Vince, and they don't think he was ever going to go. And they thought he'd ride it out and it will go away. But once he left, the idea of him coming back, I was surprised about a lot of people who you would think are his allies, and personally, I'm sure they are. But as far as wanting him back, I'm sure there's some people that do. So basically, what Meltzer is saying now, I know it's a lot of words, but basically what Meltzer is saying there is basically no one wants Vince back. No one wants Vince back, even the people that thought that the empire was going to collapse without him. It didn't. The emperor wasn't wearing any clothes. He was naked. That's the moral of the story. And that was the same with Vince McMahon. The company can't operate without him. He left and the company is doing just fine. In fact, financially, it's doing better than it has in a really long time, especially in a difficult current climate. Now, Meltzer continues, not just talking about this, but writing about it this time. And per Dave Meltzer in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, many within the company, as he just mentioned previously, feel the company is better without McMahon. Meltzer writes, quote, "The general feeling within the company is that things are so much better without McMahon there. Certainly the talent is happier. While there have been weak Raw ratings in the last 2 weeks, they are up in the 18-49 for Raw, SmackDown, and NXT over the same period 1 year ago. While their competition has declined, that doesn't factor in that USA Network itself has dropped 5.7% in homes available over the past year. In addition, the demand for tickets for major events at this point is very high, although that had been the case really since WrestleMania and with Vince McMahon in charge." So again, you will look at people that say, well, the ratings are down without Vince, and in reality, the demo are up. Certainly the viewership may be down slightly, but the ticket demand is also there as well. But the key aspect of this, and it's kind of what Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio, and what he continues to write today in the Observer, and it is true, is that there had been a lot of discussion about the company being sold. And one of the biggest reasons a lot of people speculated as to why the stock price had risen so high in the days and weeks after the McMahon departure was that there was a general feeling on Wall Street that the company was being prepared to be sold to a company like Disney or like Amazon or whatever that may be. A big company was going to buy WWE, and it was going to become the latest part of its portfolio. That's why the stock price increased so much. However, Meltzer is basically saying that as long as Vince McMahon says to himself, I want to get back in the WWE. I want to be back in charge. The company will never be sold. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens to the stock price because of that. Meltzer writes, quotes, the first thing that as long as Vince McMahon is looking at returning, the company can't be sold. If the company is sold, he would have no power to return. His power is because he is both the largest shareholder in the company and, more importantly, the way his shares are determined as far as voting goes that he put together when the company went public to make sure he could never be voted out of power. McMahon owned 37.6% of WWE as of this past summer, but because his stock is determined differently than other stock, he controls 80% of the voting power. Since the Wall Street Journal report of McMahon's return plans, there have been subsequent reports that numerous WWE higher-ups want nothing to do with the Vince McMahon return, a sentiment which has also been echoed backstage. So I still think it's very unlikely that Vince makes a return to WWE at an executive level. Whilst he may have voting power, and this is when it gets really Game of Thrones and really strange, whilst he does have voting power, the entire board of directors voting to have Vince McMahon come back, I just can't see it. And even, I mean, I know he only retired in July, but so much has changed in that company from a structural point of view already that I feel that would be difficult. Not that Vince would care about that. He'd come in and he'd make his own structure in that company. But I think that, again, I think more allegations will come to light. I think the fact that he even believes he could return with all of this public scrutiny and him really nearly destroying the company, certainly from a financial point of view with some of the things that weren't declared publicly on financial statements would be a massive problem for WWE. So I just can't see it. The company is better off without him at this point. But Vince McMahon has a ginormous ego. And will he continue to push it? The general feeling is he will. But I would be stunned to see him return. Tonight is SmackDown live on Fox. We've got some big things announced for the show, but we could see one of these sort of really big moments in WWE history, especially if you believe the teases of a WWE creative team member. The weekend has nearly arrived, and that of course means that SmackDown is getting closer and closer. While this week's episode has already garnered a lot of interest due to hints that it will be a significant night in the story of Sami Zayn and the Bloodline, a new message from long-term creative writer Rob Fee may send that excitement into overdrive. He wrote on Twitter, quote, "I wouldn't miss SmackDown this week. Don't say I didn't warn you." Now, it's already been advertised that Roman Reigns is returning to SmackDown for the first time since Survivor Series War Games, where the Bloodline won the main event in the War Games match. Furthermore, Jey Uso pulled Sami Zayn aside last week on SmackDown and encouraged him to clean up his look and get groomed because this week's show could be a big night for him. Along with a possible twist in the story, it's looking like viewers will see Zayn with short hair for the first time in years, many even predicting he's going to get a haircut identical to the Usos. There are other people suggesting that it could be a Sami Uso naming ceremony or he could get kicked out of the Bloodline. Of course, other matches announced for the show include Gunther defending the Intercontinental Championship against Ricochet, Hit Row facing the Viking Raiders and Legado del Fantasma in a triple threat tag team match, Damage Control are defending the women's tag team titles against Liv Morgan and Tegan Nox. But look, it might have nothing to do with Sami Zayn. At the same time, of course, Rob Fee is very close friends with Bray Wyatt. He was very instrumental with the White Rabbit campaign that was so successful earlier this year, facilitating the return of Bray Wyatt. Could we see the latest development in the Bray Wyatt storyline with LA Knight this evening? Could we see Uncle Howdy for the first time in person in the middle of the ring? Are we going to see The Fiend return? There are so many different things we could see this evening, so of course we'll talk about them tomorrow on WWE's news video. Shotsy, is the injury real or is it not? On last week's edition of SmackDown, WWE aired a backstage video of Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler attacking Shotsy in a parking lot, culminating with the two slamming her hand into a car door. This appeared to be a way to put Shotsy on the shelf from a storyline perspective, but a source of PW Insider is stating that Shotzi's hand injury is legitimate. Mike Johnson is reporting that the video was a way to get her off television and recover from the injury. Following the video, Shotsy shared an x-ray photo of her hand and indicated she could be out for 6 weeks. So actually, it would appear that maybe Shotsy is legitimately injured, and that's why they did the angle last week. But of course, it's widely reported that Ronda Rousey is going to be facing Raquel Rodriguez for the SmackDown Women's Championship at the Royal Rumble. And I guess this is also another way, in addition to writing Shotzi off television, to get heat on Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. One name that has been rumored to be returning is Charlotte Flair, and she continues to tease that possibly she could be making her return to the company very, very soon. Her absence since May, of course, that being WrestleMania Backlash when she lost the SmackDown Women's Championship to Ronda Rousey, hasn't come without speculation. She's been constantly teasing her return any way she can. Adding more fuel to that fire, Flair responded to an Instagram post from a fan, screen grabbing the post and adding an hourglass emoji to it, signifying that her return is imminent. It was previously reported last week that WWE is preparing creative for her return, so it could come at any point. It might even be tonight on SmackDown. Who knows? Speaking of SmackDown, we have an update on the SmackDown Christmas television tapings. A new update has been revealed for SmackDown's upcoming taping schedule. WWE is approaching the holiday seasons and will be making adjustments to their schedule due to the Christmas and New Year's holidays. Following tonight's episode of SmackDown, the following week's episode will fall just 2 days before Christmas. Per PW Insider, the SmackDown episode on December 23 will not be live and will be taped tonight, following Friday's show. The December 30 episode of SmackDown will be live and will feature the return, of course, of one John Cena. So there's going to be a double taping this evening. But there you go, guys. It's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.